Discussed on this radio show Monday. Turkey went ahead and began their military invasion of Syria. Today, Turkey began sending 50,000 army troops, 500 main battle tanks, and assorted artillery and armored personnel vehicles into northern Syria at 3 separate entry points. This is a major, very bad, very dangerous thing that is taking place. I am going to talk about this tonight. There is covert intelligence that I have to tell you about, same way I did the other night. On Monday night, because in my years with the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, I was a national security intelligence asset. I had extraterritorial operating authority granted to me by the Office of Intelligence at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., and I did a lot of things in a lot of places to protect the United States of America. I'm proud of what I did. When the Obama regime came in, they weren't so happy, and they decided that maybe federal prison was where I needed to be, and they prosecuted me and put me there for 33 months, then took away my right to be on the internet and on the radio for 3 more years, but here I am, your trusted servant, bringing you information that the mass media will not report. In addition to Turkey's invasion of Syria, a very serious thing took place between Russia and Israel in the skies between Syria and Lebanon. Russian fighter jets intercepted Israeli fighter jets and thwarted an Israeli jet attack against targets in Syria. Yeah. So I'll be talking about the details of this story as this show unfolds. Also tonight, what I hope to cover, there is an intentional electric power outage in parts of California. Right now, as I speak, 500,000 customers of Pacific Gas and Electric in California are without electric. And get this, some of these people may not get their electric back for a week. And you say, how? Wow, that's terrible. What happened? Nothing happened. There are high heat and high winds forecast for several areas of California. And because of the propensity for possible wildfires, Pacific Gas and Electric is shutting off the electric so that their towers don't arc and start wildfires. Now, liberal logic is like so bizarre. I don't know what rational person thinks it's a good idea to cut electricity for 500,000 customers. And bear in mind, folks, this is not 500,000 people. This is 500,000 customers. That means meters. And as you well know, an electric meter on a house, well, could be a one-family house, could be 2-family, 3-family, could be an apartment building, could be businesses. All right, so we know that they've cut off about 500,000 customers. That could be several million people without electricity tonight. We're going to talk about that. And we also are going to talk about very covert intelligence, A2, S3, and D5. Yes, I said that. A2, S3, D5. Now, people who subscribe to the Hal Turner radio show website and support that site and this radio show with, a whopping fee of $1 a week. They already know what this is about, but I will be cluing you guys in on the radio tonight because it's a very interesting thing that has come up, and you need to know about it. So that's my plan for tonight's show. And then, of course, we're going to take your phone calls. And since tonight is a very big show with lots of new listeners, I just want to give you a quick heads up. Callers to this radio show are not pre-screened for content. Nobody asks them, who are you? Where are you calling from? What do you want to talk about? And then gets back on the phone and says, no, we're not going to talk about that, and hangs up. We don't do that here. If you call in, the phone system puts you on hold automatically. You can hear the show while you're on hold. And I just take every caller and put them on the air. Because I celebrate freedom of speech, I think it's important that everybody have their say. Now, I may not agree with you. Heck, we could fight like hell on the show. But you will have your say. And to those of you who aren't familiar with this format, be aware you might hear things that, oh my gosh, make your blood boil. And you may hear points of view that perhaps are deeply offensive to you. Well, the key to speech that you don't like is more speech, not censorship. And so, I want to give you guys a heads up, because sometimes the people who call in here say things that are controversial. Heck, sometimes people call in here with viewpoints that a lot of folks think have no right to be spoken in polite society. But, that's the nature of this radio show. There are no commercials on this show. We take breaks, and during those breaks we play public service announcements. We play spoof telephone calls. We play spoof parody songs to make fun of the politically correct. And we also celebrate America. We play stuff like military tunes and stuff at the top of the hour for a couple of minutes just to celebrate the United States of America. So, all right, so that's it for the new listeners. It is 9:12. I've got 3 minutes to begin this story before the first break. And, of course, the big news. Turkey has commenced an invasion of Syria. 50,000 troops, 500 tanks entering northern Syria at 3 separate entry points. I spoke to you guys about this on Monday. Told you it was going to happen, and here it is. It's happening. All right, here's how it goes. Turkish troops started crossing into Syria to get rid of Kurdish militants. Part of northeastern Syria, part of Iraq, and parts of southern Turkey have, for generations, been occupied by people who are of Kurdish ancestry. Well, the present government in Turkey, which is headed by President Recep Erdogan, or some people pronounce it Erdogan, does not like the Kurds. The Kurds, according to Turkey, are somehow politically aligned with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, and they call it the PKK, and Turkey doesn't like them. They have ruled that they are evil, bad terrorist groups, and they're banned in Turkey, and, they're banned elsewhere because, Turkey's a NATO ally, and Turkey wanted them banned, so they got banned. Anyway, now the Turkish army's entering Syria because the president of Turkey wants 2 things. He wants the 3 million Syrian refugees who fled Syria when the civil war broke out. He wants them put back in Syria. But he also wants the Kurds that are in southern Turkey and in northern Syria. He wants them kept away from his country. He says he wants to create a safe zone 30 kilometers deep into Syria and about 300 kilometers wide. And that is what he has sent his troops to do. Turkish jets started bombing the Syrian border on Monday night ahead of today's ground invasion. And a forward group of Turkish forces entered Syria early today at 2 points. About 3 o'clock this afternoon, the 50,000 troops started crossing. I'll be right back with more after this. I'm talking about the situation inside Syria. Turkey has begun an invasion, and it is it is a bad, bad thing that's going on. Let me finish up with my coverage of this big, big story. There's a lot at stake here, folks. World War III is potentially at stake, all right? So I said to you, Turkish jets started bombing the Syrian border on Monday ahead of today's ground invasion. Turkey sees the Kurds as a threat because they think it's linked to the Kurdish Workers' Party, and the Turkish government has hated them for decades. It's considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. and European Union. A forward group of Turkish forces entered Syria early today, about 5:30 this morning, East Coast U.S. time. They entered at 2 points along the frontier, close to the Syrian towns of Tal Abyad, that's spelled Talabyad, and Ras Al Ayn, spelled Rasal-Ayn. And earlier today, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said that, deployments and work were still underway regarding the operation. Kurdish forces were on high alert, and they called for fighters to join them up in northern Syria to defend the region against what they thought at the time was going to be a Turkish offensive involving, tens of thousands of soldiers. Well, they were right. Now, little perspective on this. Turkey's incursion follows a very dramatic reversal of U.S. foreign policy this week. President Trump told President Erdogan in a phone call on Sunday that American troops who had been working very closely with Kurdish forces as we went in there and battled against ISIS, the Islamic State, those terrorist guys that cut people's heads off and set people on fire and threw people off buildings. The Kurds were helping us fight ISIS. And that, when President Trump told President Erdogan that we were going to pull out some of our troops, that effectively cleared the way for Turkey to do this. Now, the White House statement on this troop removal surprised our allies. It surprised a lot of people at home and overseas. The Kurdish-led military wing, which calls itself the Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, made it clear they would defend their own people, not go after the Islamic State anymore. Well, the Kurdish, YPG militia that forms the backbone of the SDF has been America's closest partner in the fight against ISIS. And they are holding thousands of ISIS jihadists in camps and in detention centers so that they can't go out and do their nefarious stuff anymore. Well, President Trump said, all right, well, Turkey is going to become responsible for those ISIS terrorist detainees, but it wasn't clear that there was any kind of mechanism in place to transfer these terrorists to Turkey. Now, President Trump drew a lot of criticism here for his decision to, hand responsibility for those jihadists over to Turkey. And there are real concerns that chaos in northern Syria could allow Islamic State members to regroup. Well, at 9:53 a.m. this morning, Iran, realizing that Turkey was going to invade Syria, Iran began a military drill not previously announced near the Iran-Turkey border. Now, you guys are smart. Iran has troops in Syria helping Syria to get rid of the rebels and the terrorists. Iran is going to side with Syria. So why do you think Iran began military drills not previously announced on the Iran-Turkey border? Yep, you can read between the lines. Iran is itching for a fight. Well, they may get one. And if Iran attacks Turkey directly, Turkey's a NATO member. That could drag us in. Some folks might find that very convenient. Other folks think it might be a little too convenient. But Iran has done this. Now, it is worth pointing out to you that what began today is essentially a ground war in northern Syria. All right? The Syrian government did not authorize or ask for Turkey to do this. Turkey is sending troops and tanks and artillery shells into Syria. That's war by any other name. Iran has now, put military on their border with Turkey. Russia is operating to assist Syria. You see how this thing can blow up? Think about how easy this can blow up. It is also worth pointing out that this, I'm going to call it a war, began one day after Yom Kippur? The Jewish religion's Day of Atonement. Well, there are 12 tribes of the biblical people Israel. And some of those 12 tribes are, now Christian. But we're still Israel. I was raised Catholic, but I am still Israel. The good Lord seems to have given our world like one last Day of Atonement before today's devil hour arrived. Folks, I think for those of you who are into the Bible, and I am not a Bible thumper, right? I'm not a minister. I'm no theological expert. I'm just a 57-year-old married guy, father of one, who's, living and trying to get along in life. But I'm a Christian by choice. And for those of you who do Bible study, this is Gog and Magog taking shape. It's playing out right before our eyes. Now, I don't mean to sound hokey or like some radical Bible thumper. I'm not. I'm a sinner. I have confessed. And I have to tell you, you may want to start preparing for the, coming of the Lord, because what's going on right now in the Middle East is in no small way leading us all right toward Armageddon. And you think I'm being facetious, or you think I'm being overreacting? Wait till you hear what has gone on today. All right? So, maybe prepare your soul for the coming of the Lord. This could be your last chance. All right, so let's get into some of the bulletins. When Turkey began softening up targets in Syria, they did it with artillery shells. They fired heavy artillery from Turkey against targets in northern Syria. Well, guess what some of the targets were that they chose to hit? Some of the prisons holding hundreds of ISIS terrorists. And they didn't flatten those prisons. They made holes in one wall, holes in a fence. And then the ISIS guys broke out. Now, all of you, most of you know I spent 15 years working with the FBI, final 5 years with the Joint Terrorism Task Force doing national security intelligence. I was granted extraterritorial operating authority by the Office of Intelligence at FBI headquarters in Washington. What that meant was that even though the FBI is a domestically chartered law enforcement agency, I was one of the very few people who was granted authority to operate extraterritorially outside the United States. When I was tasked to go overseas, my work was coordinated with other U.S. agencies that are chartered for overseas work, like the CIA. But I didn't work for the CIA. I wasn't a CIA agent. It was FBI ISIS prison break. Hundreds of ISIS fighters broke free inside Syria, and intelligence confirms they received orders to head to the United States. Specifically, several hundred of these ISIS guys have been told to cross into the United States illegally in an area near the Nogales, Arizona border crossing. That's the crossing that ISIS uses trying to enter the U.S. illegally. Now, thankfully, our brave and dedicated Border Patrol is already alerted to this, and they are carefully watching. But I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we here in America are now their target, right? We were over in Syria bombing the hell out of these guys, killing them left and right. Well, they want to repay that, and several hundred of them broke out of jail and are coming here. Also, about 10 o'clock this morning, Turkish President Erdogan confirmed that the Turkish ground operation, quote, has begun. All right, the Turkish Air Force initiated preliminary bombing campaigns, and they did multiple airstrikes. At 10:15 this morning, Eastern U.S. time, civilians on the border in Syria were abandoning their homes and fleeing with their lives. Some are fleeing on foot. At 10:39 this morning, Kurdish people began returning fire, launching mortars from Syria across the border into Turkey. The battle is on. October 9th, 2019. It is 9:31 p.m. here on the east coast of the United States. At 10:39 a.m., Kurdish fighters began returning fire, launching mortar attacks on several Turkish towns across the border. A town called Sanliurfa, Turkey, came under mortar attack from the Kurds returning fire. Also a town, Nusaybin, Nusaybin, Turkey, was under mortar attack. At 11:12 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, intensive bombardment by Turkish jets took place against Kurdish positions and against civilian villages in the Syrian towns of Tal Abyad, Saray Kanye, Kamishlo, and Ain Isa, all in Syria. Now, according to initial reports, there were casualties among the civilian population. I am able to confirm right now 60 dead civilians from the Turkish attacks. Turkish jets also began bombing Al-Kamishli, which incidentally is well outside what Turkey claims is going to be its safe zone. So you have to start asking, why would Turkish fighter jets be bombing something outside of this 30-kilometer by 300-kilometer safe zone? Gee, that's an inconsistency. Well, around 12:24 p.m. this afternoon here in New York, Turkey did something that is staggering. The Al Mansoura Dam is a dam across the Euphrates River outside of Raqqa, Syria. The Al Mansoura Dam was bombed by Turkish warplanes. All right, you smart people, let me ask you a question again. What was the dam doing to Turkey that they bombed it? What possible danger did the dam pose to Turkey? Well, let's see. What does this dam do? It holds back Lake Assad. It feeds the Euphrates River. Lake Assad, water is pumped out of this dam for drinking water to 2 million people in northern Syria. The Turks blew up the dam. Now, I scratch my head because, I'm 57 years old and I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I can see things with my two eyes and think for myself. The dam wasn't attacking Turkey. The dam isn't a threat to Turkey. Why did Turkey attack it? Well, they cut off the water supply for 2 million people in northern Syria. How are people supposed to live in northern Syria without water? And, Turkey's claim that they want to create a safe zone, 30 kilometers deep and 300 kilometers wide. Safe zone? How are people going to live in the safe zone without water? Without that dam, there is nothing to hold back Lake Assad from free flow flooding. A lot of areas in Syria, all the way to Baghdad, Iraq. Folks, once the lake is gone, once that Lake Assad is gone, what will keep the Euphrates River flowing? Well, who cares, Hal? Well, you should care. Here's why. You ever read the Bible? There's a biblical passage that you should pay very close attention to in the book of Revelations. Revelation 16:12. It's very brief. Let me read it to you. Quote, "Then the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared." Unquote. Oh, yeah. Some of you just said, oh, shit. Yeah. I said earlier, this is Gog, Magog playing out right before our eyes. I said, this is leading us directly to Armageddon. And you thought to yourself, oh, he's exaggerating. This isn't right. This Bible was written more than 2,000 years ago, folks. And the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way for the kings from the east might be prepared. Well, they bombed the dam today. The dam isn't holding back Lake Assad. The water is free flowing like mad down the Euphrates. And when the lake is empty, what's going to happen to the river Euphrates? Its water will dry up. Now, maybe it'll be a stream here or there. Might even still be a little bit of a river. But the way of the kings from the east will be prepared. All right? This is serious, what's going on over in the Middle East. Biblical serious. End of the world serious. Now, if any of you had any doubts that Turkey's intention was nothing short of ethnic cleansing, this attack on the dam should resolve all of your doubts. Turkey claimed it merely wanted to create a 30-kilometer wide by 300-kilometer long safe zone. Turkey plans to put about 3 million Syrians who fled the Syrian civil war into Turkey. They want to put them back into Syria. How can people live there without water? So Turkey's stated intentions of creating a safe zone now are starting to look like an elaborate ruse. Not only did they bomb the dam, they fired on certain prisons, certain select prisons, where their ISIS pals were being held, and now hundreds of them have broken out. Why would Turkey want their ISIS terrorists to break out? Well, we're going to talk about that. But before I get into the ISIS-Turkey connection, I want to finish up with this bombing of the dam. Ladies and gentlemen, in my personal opinion, I'm not a lawyer. I can't make a legal opinion. But in my personal opinion, the bombing of that dam was a crime against humanity. And I truly believe it is a direct act leading us all on the path to Armageddon. All right? This is a lot more serious than a lot of people want to say. All right. At 2:35 this afternoon, East Coast U.S. time, Turkish shelling by artillery was done against Amuda. And with the exception of Kobane, Turkey, the Turks targeted every major city and town along the border. The town I spoke of earlier, Tel Abyad, is now burning. The whole town's on fire from Turkish artillery shelling. Other areas of northern Syria are suffering similar fate. Artillery barrages are falling from the sky, fired by the Turkish army against many towns and villages in northern Syria tonight. These are civilian areas. Why is the Turkish army firing artillery against civilians? Another crime against humanity, in my opinion. Well, at 3:30 Eastern U.S. time this afternoon, 50,000 Turkish army troops, along with 500 Turkish main battle tanks, began crossing into northern Syria from Turkey. 2 of the 3 entry locations were confirmed right away. One entry location is Al-Darbasiyah, and the other location is Kamishlo. All right? There are clashes by heavy weapons between the Turkish army and Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces. Civilians have been killed, and I have photographs and names of some of the civilians killed, like Fadi Sabri Habsotu was killed by Turkish shelling in Kamishlo today. And another Syrian, I have his photograph, was this poor guy was standing in front of his own house, minding his own business late at night, not bothering anyone. And a Turkish artillery shell hit his house. The house blew up. Most of the man's head was ripped apart by the blast. His body was hurled over 100 feet away, laying on the sidewalk across the street, down the street, from where his house is now blazing. I have pictures of all this stuff on my show, on my site, HalTurnerRadioShow.com. This poor bastard wasn't doing anything, and they blew him apart. It's a civilian. By 4:11 p.m. this afternoon, there were fierce clashes in the border cities of Kamishli and Derbasiyah, and as Kurds were defending against the heavy Turkish military attack. The Turkish army has been pounding targets in western Ain al-Arab. They've been shelling the city of Tel Abyad and North Raqqa. Turkey is again shelling the city of Serikaniye and Ras Al Ain city center. Now, I got video from a source inside the Turkish army. He's in one of the army convoys that has entered Syria. I have put this video up on my website. It doesn't show much. It shows them, crossing on dirt roads into Syria. It shows, MRAPs, armored personnel vehicles. And it's very non-controversial, no battle scenes, no blood, guts, gore. I put this up here to show all of you how deeply embedded in current governments some of my former colleagues are. To prove to you that when I tell you something's going on, believe you me, I've got proof to back it up. Sometimes I can show you that proof. Other times I cannot, because that would, expose a covert asset. So when I report something to you, it is solid. All right. The United States Congress is presently on vacation. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican, and Senator Chris Van Hollen have jointly proposed crushing economic sanctions to be placed against Turkey. The United States is going to crush them economically. Talk a little bit more about that and give you more covert details when I get back. Hal Turner live in New York City. I'm going to open the phones in about 15 minutes. The number that you guys can call to talk about this or other stories I talk about, 201-771-3013. All right. Congress is going to impose sanctions on Turkey when the Congress reconvenes next week. The Graham-Van Hollen Turkey sanctions bill, getting put in by Senators Graham and Van Hollen. Mandatory sanctions are ordered by the Congress to go into effect. The sanctions will apply to the U.S. assets of the following Turkish political leadership: their president, Erdogan, the vice president, Minister of National Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of the Treasury, Minister of Trade, Minister of Energy. Section 2, sanctions against military transactions. Nobody will be able to sell or provide financial, material, or technological support with the Turkish military. And that includes aircraft parts, and machinery used by the Turkish Air Force, automotive equipment, and services utilized by the Turkish land and naval forces, and of course weapons or defense articles used by the Turkish military, all sanctioned. Nobody in the world can do that, can trade with the Turkish military, or they can't do business with the United States. Sanctions against the Turkish energy sector. I'm going to read you the sanctions, then I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second. Sanctions any foreign person or entity who supplies goods, services, technology, information, or other support that maintains or supports Turkey's domestic petroleum production and natural gas production. This is big, right? And let me explain how this Section 3 of sanctions against the Turkish energy sector came about. When the ISIS terrorist group was building its caliphate, taking over vast sections of Syria, taking over sections of Iraq, waging jihad in Europe, and blowing things up and cutting people's heads off and putting videos of it on the internet. Everybody says, where the hell are these people getting their money? They're buying weapons. They're hiring people to work for them. They're paying their fighters. Where are they getting the money? Well, ISIS took over the oil-rich portions of northern Syria. ISIS then stole about, 2,000 oil tanker trucks and started stealing the oil directly from the oil rigs in the parts of northern Syria that they controlled. Those tanker trucks then drove in very long convoys to Turkey. Oh, Turkey? Yeah. And you know how we found out? Russian intelligence. They had aircraft, some drones, some spy aircraft, took video. And Russia released that video to the world after Turkey shot down a Russian jet. They said, look at this. As these ISIS oil tanker trucks are coming down the road from Syria toward the Turkey border checkpoint. The Turkey army at the border checkpoint waved them through. They didn't even stop the trucks. No showing your passport. No showing your bill of lading. They waved these oil tankers through. And the oil tankers went on to deliver that oil to places in Turkey where the oil was repackaged and sold on the black market. That theft and smuggling of oil from Syria through Turkey generated $100 million a month in cash for ISIS. That's where they were getting their money. They were stealing the oil in Syria, smuggling it into Turkey, and someone very high up in the Turkish government ordered the military to wave the tanker trucks through. Hey, let me ask you something, folks. Who in the Turkish government would be powerful enough to order the Turkish military to wave through those oil tankers? Yeah, President Recep Erdogan. And there were accusations that Erdogan and his sons, who just happened to be in the oil business, were the method used to sell this ISIS stolen and smuggled oil on the black market. Well, you got to know, folks, if ISIS was being given $100 million a month, what do you think the people at the top in Turkey were getting for making it all possible? Yeah, could be maybe even an equal amount. Let me ask you something. What would you do if it meant you could pocket $100 million a month? Yeah, everybody's going, yeah, I know what I would do. Yeah, I know what I would do too. But, that opportunity hasn't presented itself, so I can't live that fantasy. But somebody in Turkey lived that fantasy. And it looks to me like somebody in Turkey wants to live that fantasy again. Why else would Turkey only partially damage the prisons and detention camps where the ISIS fighters are located, allowing hundreds of them, maybe a couple thousand by now, to escape? Could it be because they want those fighters to go steal those oil fields again and turn back on the oil smuggling operation? I think that's a possibility. Am I wrong to think that somebody might want to get their hands on $100 million a month again? Because I'd want to get God forgive me, I would want to get my hands on $100 million a month. It's not going to happen, but you see where I'm going with this, right? And then why would somebody blow up a dam that provides drinking water to 2 million people up in that northern part of Syria? Well, get rid of those pesky civilians. Get them out of the way. Don't have to worry about them no more. This way they can steal with impunity, perhaps? Yeah. So this sanction in the Graham von Holland Turkey sanctions bill that addresses the energy sector in Turkey, this makes sure that if ISIS breaks out and starts stealing people's oil again and trying to cart it into Turkey, Turkey can't sell it. And then there's prohibitions on U.S. military assistance. Also, Turkey's purchase of the Russian S-400 missile system. Now, there are some exemptions in here. Exempted are humanitarian aid, medical assistance, democracy promotion. Should I read propaganda on that one? I think I should. All right. And then there are certain reports that are required, and there are now visa restrictions which will come in for the Turkish leadership to prevent them from coming to the U.S. At 5:52 p.m. Eastern U.S. time today, I got word that the Turkish Air Force had bombed a United States anti-terrorism training facility inside Syria. Yep, they attacked one of our coalition anti-terror training facilities. Now, this strike was no accident. These were multiple airstrikes that deliberately and successfully destroyed this American coalition joint anti-terror facility. It is known by its Kurdish acronym YAT, Y-A-T. In the Kurdish language, the words are Yekenyen Anti-Terror, right? YAT. Now, photos of this bombed facility were leaked to me, and I have published them. So you want to look what Turkey did? At the blown-up buildings, the rubble laying in the streets and on the sidewalks, the destroyed infrastructure. It's all there for you to see. Ladies and gentlemen, and especially to any listeners that may be tuned in on the internet or, in the United States, I would argue that this is a Turkish military attack upon a United States facility. Now, some people may argue, they may say, well, no, it was a joint center and we shared it with the Kurds and other people. Yeah, okay, you might make that argument. But you could also say, well, wait a minute, this is a U.S. coalition anti-terrorism facility. U.S. operative phrase. We were attacked. Now, I have not been told if any U.S. personnel were still in that counterterrorism training facility, and I have not been told if anybody was killed or injured there at the time. I am endeavoring to determine that. All right? Late this afternoon, about 6:05 p.m. Eastern Time, one of the major prisons that houses some of the 70,000 ISIS jihadist detainees was struck by a Turkish airstrike, and several buildings were hit, but they weren't hit in the middle of the building to kill everybody inside and bring the building down. Exterior wall of one wall on each of several prisoner areas was destroyed. The bomb was targeted to go into the ground at the foundation, and when it detonated up, it knocked the cinder blocks down, big holes in the wall. Thousands of ISIS jihadists broke out. And it was at that point, at 6:05, that it quickly became clear to me, it's my opinion, that Turkey is aiming to undermine all successful efforts and achievements that we gained during our fight against ISIS. As I said earlier, hundreds of terrorists already escaped from other prisons hit by Turkish attacks. A lot of those terrorists are already moving to reclaim the city of Raqqa. The Syrian army says they've been battling it out in Raqqa now, and that ISIS has reclaimed 20%. I'll be back. For those of you tuned to 9 Finishing up. All right, the ISIS terrorists have escaped from a lot of prisons due to the Turkish attacks. Intel reports say that ISIS is moving to reclaim Raqqa, and that just today, they seem to have been able to get about 20% of that area back. It is confirmed by numerous intelligence reports that a large number of ISIS fighters are being directed to head toward the United States and to make illegal entry across our southern border near Nogales, Arizona. And, of course, U.S. Border Patrol is already alerted to this, and our brave Immigration and Customs Enforcement Border Patrol agents are already closely watching. Now, it was Turkey, ladies and gentlemen, early on. I told you this earlier. They were caught red-handed helping ISIS to smuggle oil stolen from Syria, sell that oil on the black market. Turkey literally waved through their border checkpoints hundreds of oil tanker trucks carrying stolen Syrian oil. That little smuggling operation, with the sales handled through Turkey, netted ISIS $100 million a month, which they used to, buy weapons, hire people, and expand. When Turkey was caught doing this by Russian intelligence, who provided the world with actual video of these trucks being waved through the Turkish border, Turkey was forced to stop their participation in this, theft and smuggling cash cow. And that resulted in a major defunding of ISIS, which contributed to its collapse. Today, right now today, as I speak, it seems that Turkey's military actions are designed, at least in part, to restore ISIS. All right? Now, because we know some of these ISIS fighters are coming to the United States, I want to tell each and every one of my listening audience, buy a gun. Yeah, I want you to buy a gun. I want you to buy a gun, learn how to use it, buy ammunition, teach your children that it is not a toy, store it safely, practice with it regularly. I want you to buy guns. Because if these ISIS people come here, we got to be ready. We cannot simply expect our police to confront these people, because look what they did in Syria. They literally took over thousands of square miles. They slaughtered anybody in their way. Well, we can't have that here. I want you to buy a gun. I want you to buy ammunition. I want you to learn how to use the gun safely. I want you to keep it, practice with it, and be ready. Because if these ISIS people come here, we're going to have to take care of business. As a country, as a people, we have a right to defend ourselves, and they ain't coming for a party, right? We've been bombing them and killing them left and right. They ain't coming to say thank you, right? All right. Let me move on while I wait for the phone lines to begin lighting up. A squadron, actually quite a number, of Russian fighter jets intercepted Israeli fighter jets, preventing the Israelis from launching an air attack against Syria. This happened last night. All right, today is October 9th, Wednesday, October 9th. This happened, less than 24 hours ago. Russian fighter jets intercepted Israeli warplanes that were preparing to bomb a site inside Syria. According to the intelligence information that I have been able to have access to, numerous Russian military aircraft swarmed near the southern border of Syria after Israeli warplanes started to get close to the border. All right? There were flights of Russian fighter jets over southern Syria because there were Israeli military aircraft in Lebanon. Now, the Syrian military Twitter account said that an Israeli attack had been expected before those Russian planes swarmed. And the claims about the Russian aircraft, and they were also confirmed by several observers on the ground, including military personnel in the Damascus countryside. Radio traffic between the Russian and Israeli jets seems to confirm that Russia made clear any weapons launched towards Syria would result in a Russian fighter jet response against the launching aircraft. Now, you may have heard, or maybe not, because the media doesn't talk about it. Last month, the Russian military intercepted several Israeli jets that were planning on bombing targets in Syria. This is a significant change in Moscow's approach to the Israeli attacks that were going on inside Syria. Now, in addition to intercepting Israeli warplanes, Russia has also begun providing the Syrian armed forces with information about potential attacks. And the Syrian armed forces were able to prevent at least 2 separate drone attacks against Damascus and Al-Qunitra. So the Russians are now physically preventing the Israeli Air Force from launching missile attacks into Syria. Think about this. And then think about it in the context of the fact that Turkey bombed the dam at Al-Mansour. Lake Assad is now free-flow flooding down the Euphrates. When the lake is empty, the Euphrates dries up. And what did the Bible tell us from 2,000 years ago? The 6th angel poured his bowl out and against the mighty Euphrates, and its waters dried up, preparing a way for the kings from the east. Now, did that biblical prophecy, Revelation 16:12, did that mean Russia? Did it mean China? Did it mean both? And now we have Russian fighter jets intercepting Israeli warplanes? You know, when you put these separate stories together, and then you back away from it and look at it in the big picture, we're literally headed toward Armageddon. I don't know if it can be prevented. Now, I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime. Hell, I had a heart attack on April 20th, had open heart surgery on April 25th. I'm lucky to even be speaking tonight because I had 4 clogged cardiac arteries, damn near killed me, and had no high blood pressure, no pains, no warning at all that this was coming. I was driving to the supermarket, felt the pressure in my chest, and things went downhill from there. I don't know if Armageddon's going to happen while I'm still alive. But boy, oh boy, I think even the most jaded, cynical, rational person could see that there seems to be a pathway being cleared for the world to go to Armageddon. That's amazing. It really is. I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen, but it sure looks like it's gonna. All right, I see I've got one caller just called in on hold.